All right, Coach, you can start with your opening statement, just wrapping up last week and focuses on Saturday going into this matchup.
At this time of the year, I don't even remember, besides the game Saturday, I don't even remember who we played last week. I think all you're doing is just preparing for the next one and looking forward. I guess Liberty would have been the game on Wednesday. Obviously a tough loss. I thought our guys played hard, made a few few choices down the stretch that we would like to have back, I'm sure, and just not the outcome that we really wanted. And again, I thought we played well enough to win that game. The one thing about Liberty that I think everyone in our league knows is that they're just not going to beat themselves. You have to beat them. And Saturday we bounced back like we have. This group's been very resilient, and we played really hard and played well, and it was fun to watch. The end of that game was a lot like the Louisiana Tech game, 6, 7, 8 point game. Jamel made a huge three to make it go from 8 to 11. And then we made our free throws to finish it out. And, that's what you do. That's what you do when you finish games. And, I was really, really pleased with just the overall mindset of our guys, just being locked in and focused and just really continuing to believe and, just doing the things that we're asking them to do right now.
Is there a particular emphasis coming into this week when there's only one game against UTEP and you guys are in a race to make the conference tournament? Is there something particular that you guys are emphasizing this week or trying to focus on?
No, we're playing really good basketball right now. We've played 4 good games in a row. Unfortunately, kind of gave that one away at UTEP, and then the other night against Liberty, just a game that could have went either way. And then we played well at La Tech and played well at Jacksonville. I believe Jacksonville was 11-1 or 15-1 at home, or 11-1 on the year. So, no, I think our focus right now is just we've continued to keep our head down and work hard, and just keep getting better. So there's not anything in particular other than just doing what we're doing right now and just trying to keep finishing off games. You look back at the UTEP game, there were 3 or 4 instances where we just make one more play, we win that game. And what we had to do there was what we should have done, and that's just when you're up 4 or 5 or 6, you got to build it, you got to pull away, and we didn't pull away against them. And you have to give them credit. They fought and did a little bit of what we've done the last couple of road games. They fought and they hung in there, and then they made a big play. And obviously when it goes to overtime, then it's just kind of anybody's game. So. Just, again, the focus for us is just we got a little rest this week, got caught up on our studies, and then just keep working hard and, keep going in the right direction, because I think we're going in the right direction right now.
Go ahead.
Speaking of you mentioned the last 4 games. The last 4 games you've been sticking with the same starting 5. I believe it's Gabe, Jamel, Anthony, Jacoby, and Juice. Do you feel like that's pretty much set in stone moving forward?
Yeah, I think we started that lineup out because of matchups, and again, I think we were in a stretch where we weren't playing great, and I was just trying to find anything to give us a spark, and I believe it did. So I think there's still some there's still going to be some lineups where we need a little bit more from our inside guys, and we can move Juice back over to the 4 some and play really big again. I do think that Augustine showed some really good flashes, Saturday, and he's a freshman, and as the year goes on, freshmen grow and they learn, and things start to slow down for him. I do think things are starting to slow down for him, and I see that in practice and walkthroughs and film. I've seen that and how he's really handling his business and just trying to mature a little bit and grow. And so, hopefully, Sear gets another shot. And, I don't think that, Sear did anything particularly wrong. I just thought the matchups didn't fit him, especially in Liberty. And then, when he has been given his opportunity here lately, he's done well. So, I think we just got to get to where we can really trust playing big again. And, but the matchups will matter.
What's the message you're going to try to convey to you guys this week, knowing how the last 4 games have played out, knowing there's 5 left and you guys are still fighting to get into the tournament?
No different message than the one that we've been giving them all year long. I think when you've coached as long as I have, you've seen just about everything, and then when you think you have, something else comes up and it gives you that experience again. Most of the time in my coaching career, our teams continue to improve and they get better as the year goes on. And we started off really hot, and then we kind of got punched in the mouth, and we didn't respond like we really wanted to, and then we went through some ups and some downs in the conference season. But I think right now we're trending in the right direction. So the message is still the same message, that it's been all year long, and that's just what it takes. We try to continue to convey to them what it takes to be good daily, what it's going to take to win this game on Saturday, and those 2 on the road next week, and then come back home and have 2 more, and it's right there in front of us. I don't think we're at a point where we need to worry about it, what everyone else is doing. I think we just got to keep worrying about what we're doing and keep playing good basketball.
You guys have been shooting free throws a lot better recently the past couple games as well. What do you think has been the biggest reason for that improvement?
Well, I have a different philosophy on free throws than most others do. My philosophy on free throws is usually who is getting fouled. Obviously Elijah's a really good free throw shooter, so if Elijah gets fouled a lot, then our free throw percentage is probably going to be pretty good. But Jacoby, got to give him credit. Stepped up there on Saturday, and he kind of got it going for us, and made 2 big ones. There was probably an opportunity for me to move him over or move him out of the game or move him into a different position, but I had a lot of confidence in him, and I knew that they were probably going to go after him and foul him. And sometimes when you put confidence in a young man, they step up and they reward you and the team and themselves. And so I was happy for him to see him make those 2 big free throws. But I think just overall, Juice had a lot of concentration on Saturday. You could see it in his eye that he was really locked in and focused, and most of the time when he is, that even relates to his free throw shooting. And so he stepped up there and made 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 6 on Saturday. And I think when he makes his free throws, because usually his are in that stretch where it kind of matters the most, then you're going to see your free throw percentage go up as a team. What I would like as a coach is just to see us continue to get more attempts. And a lot of that has probably been based off of us not really necessarily having quote unquote low post go to this year. And our offense has been formulated a little bit more from our bigs going from outside to in, which I think fits us. And so we haven't gotten as fouled as much as I've wanted. But getting your guards downhill and continuing to attack the rim and be aggressive, I think is what we've done the last 4 games, and I think it's rewarded us.
Coach, obviously, big game from Jalen on Saturday. He scored 20. Last week it was Chris coming off the bench, providing a little bit of a spark. Just how important is it to have someone coming off the bench, providing that spark, and maybe if the things in the starting lineup aren't working out?
Yeah, I mean, when you have a good team, that's usually what makes a good team is your depth and the fact that you have a bench. And I think if you'll look back at our statistics, when we played really well the first 6, 7, 8 games of the season, our bench was one of the leading scoring benches in the country. And then unfortunately we went through that stretch where we didn't play well, but we also weren't getting a lot more out of our bench. And so then that's when I started to move the lineup, right? Tried to shake things up, tried to get some guys maybe into the lineup that could give us something that they weren't giving us off the bench. But if you look over the last 4 games when we've started to play good basketball again, a lot of that has been based off of our bench playing well. And, I was happy for Jalen. I think our guys were really happy for Jalen. Jalen's a really talented young man. When Jalen plays well, I think when he scores in double figures, we're like 10-2 on the year. And, he's a big part of it. We just got to get a lot of more consistency out of him. And hopefully these next 5 games and then the tournament, he continues to play like he did the other night.
What are some of maybe the keys to trying to get the best out of guys that aren't maybe coming from the starting lineup so that they can be that effective player coming into the game, maybe, mid-second or whatever you guys want to put them in?
Yeah, I think what you try to find is just, that role where that guy fits in and he's comfortable and he plays the best. I think our starting lineup has been pretty consistent. Again, we've kind of, when you're not winning like we weren't in the middle of the league, you got to try something, and moved things around and we've tried different combinations, and I think where we're at right now is probably where we'll be at the rest of the year. But you know, we've for sure had an interesting group. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it, and no getting around it. And I think for the most part, Joe has probably had the same kind of group as well, and he's kind of pushed the right buttons, and his team is playing at a very high level right now. It's very comparable, I believe, to us. And so, you know, sometimes you just, you know, it's interesting, but it's a lot about chemistry. It's a lot about, you know, guys figuring out their roles. It's also a lot about guys just figuring out what you've been trying to get them to figure out. And, you know, some teams it takes a little bit longer, unfortunately, than it does others. A lot of this also just stems and has a lot to do with how long we've been together, you know. And I know it's not an excuse, and I know there's a lot of people out there listening. They're like, well, they're tired of hearing that, but it's the truth. You know, I just go back to looking at some of my teams 2, 3, 4 years ago, and I had guys that had been together for 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 years. You know, 5, 6 guys, 6, 7, 8 returners. You know, when you have that and you go through stretches, it's not a big deal to them. It's like, you know, just like, hey, we've been here before. We know it. We know what Coach Messages is. We know what we got to do to get out of this funk right now. We know what we got to do to play better. You know, we know what kind of plays he wants to run and what we need to do at the end of the game. All that stuff matters, you know, when you start looking at how many people that you have back in your program from year to year. And, you know, and then I think from there, you know, you got to find guys that are obviously the right fits, and guys that maybe pick up things quick, and, you know, guys that understand. Maybe they've had a coach before that wants the same things that I want. And I think that's what we all strive to do. And sometimes, again, it just takes teams a little bit longer to figure all those things out. You know, I really do feel, you know, it's interesting, but like, you know, even the La Tech game and the UTEP game and the Liberty game, to me, those games just felt different from our group. Like, I saw a different sense of understanding. I saw, you know, guys that, you know, were starting to, maybe it was something I didn't have to harp on as much because they were like doing it already. So, you know, that's positive. You know, it is the right time of the year to be starting to peak. It's the right time of the year to start figuring things out and start playing your best basketball. Now, you know, we put ourselves in a hole, and you know, we're the ones that got to get ourselves out.
What do you feel like, as you said, makes UTEP and you guys comparable or similar, I guess, going into Saturday or
just that fact? Like I said, I just think that we both have had teams that I'm sure Joe and I both feel like, you know, at times we've probably not played as well as we thought we would have played. And, you know, I think we both also would sit down and agree that we're probably both playing our best basketball or getting there. And so I think there's a lot of similarities to that, you know, and I also think that, you know, if we sat down off the record, the reasons and the issues at times that we weren't, we probably both would come up with the same things. And, you know, so I think we've both put our heads down and we've both worked hard because that's who we are. And then I think what's happened is we've started to see some reward. We've started to see some reward with our teams, starting to understand things, guys starting to understand their roles a little bit better, you know, starting to play a little bit more together and just playing for each other. And so, you know, I think they're playing really well right now. You know, I know they played Liberty close and it was a tight game. I've watched that game, and, you know, that game could have went either way for sure. I guess Liberty pulled away a little bit at the very, very end, but it was a good game up until the last maybe minute or two of the game.
With all that said, how are you guys kind of feeling about this opportunity you got on Saturday night to rematch them here in Las Cruces?
Yeah, same way we felt the last time we played them. I mean, you know, I think when you're where we're at right now, where we're just trying to make the tournament and we're trying to keep playing good basketball, if that's really what you think about, you know, you don't, you know, we had opportunity maybe somewhere in the middle of the conference where we had Missouri State and FIU coming here, and, you know, our guys were all about the revenge game and all that. And, you know, at the end of the day, man, just trying to win a game. It don't matter, you know. Was that a tough loss there? Of course. You know, will our guys be overly motivated for this game? Sure. But I think they're going to be overly motivated because we're playing pretty good right now, and we want to see ourselves continue to play that way because it's a good feeling. You know, it's a good feeling when you see yourself go on the road to a place that's only lost one road game all year long, or home game all year long, and you go in there and beat them by 9 or 10. Yeah, that's a good feeling, and you know that needs to be addictive. Our guys need to understand what that felt like and what it took and what we did to make that successful. And then I think you just take all of those things and you roll it into the fact that Saturday's a game against a team that we felt like we should have probably won at their place, against a team who, you know, is a rivalry and the stakes are always high and the crowd's probably going to be really nice and everybody's overly excited. Those are the things that if you get caught up in, you get away from what you're really trying to truly do, and that's just to keep playing good basketball.
I have one last question. I know you've been really big on defense, especially with the guys. You guys only have one steal against Jack State. What number would you kind of ideally like to see the team average?
Yeah, it's a good point by you, but really more than anything, I think sometimes your defense is not predicated off of whether or not you're stealing the ball away from the other team. You know, there's different types of defenses. You know, UTEP's defense is based off of stealing the ball and getting turnovers and things like that, where, you know, you look at Liberty, and Liberty's defense is total opposite. They play pack line. They want you to shoot contested threes. They're not really worried about taking the ball from you. You know, we've been somewhere in the middle this year. Have we stole the ball more than I've wanted to? No. But I just think when you don't do that, then that kind of tells you what your team is good or not good at, and so then you take it and you got to figure out what's the best defensive philosophy for us this year. And for me, it's just been a little bit of the bend and don't break. You know, I think we're more of a bend and don't break, and we've done a great job of that the last 4 games. You know, we held, you know, I mean, Liberty's a 53, I think they're top 10 in the country in field goal efficiency, and we held them to 43%. You know, you look at Jacksonville, I think we held them to 39. You know, La Tech at their place at 36. So that number is the one that I really look at. I think UTEP shot 40% or 39. So I'm looking at that number, really that field goal defense. You know, we need to get that percentage down. If we can get that in the 30s, usually that equates to a victory for us. And, you know, but steals, I mean, steals are nice for sure. But I think more than anything is just really trying to make them uncomfortable, making them try to play in a half court. When we get people to play in half court, we're usually pretty good.
And then, yeah, last one from me. You guys, when you went through that rough patch, seemed like you really guys did some soul searching. What's the biggest difference that you've noticed from the guys in the locker room over these last 4 games, where it seems like, you know, now you guys are trending in the right direction?
You know, yeah, I mean, you always do soul searching when you're not winning or when things aren't going well in your life. Doesn't matter, you know, that's when you lean on your faith the hardest. But they're really, to me, our mindset and our attitude for our guys has been terrific all year long. I mean, this group, you know, I think this group really loves basketball. But you know, sometimes in life when you love something, you still may not understand how to get that love or what it takes to keep that love. And so, you know, that's an analogy. But to answer your question, our guys have just started to understand what it's taking. And, you know, it's not, look, as a coach, if you know what you're doing, you've had that same message all year long. And, you know, we haven't changed our message. We haven't changed the approach, because if you believe in what you've always done, then eventually, you know, it's going to work out. And so my message has still just been with these guys to try to be as best an everyday person as you can with everything in your life, whether it's your studies, you know, whether it's your faith, whatever it is, just be an everyday person. And so we've just kept trying to, you know, preach that to them and teach that to them. And, you know, it's fun to be able to watch them actually start to understand, you know what, man, this is kind of working out for me a little bit. You know, do you wish that it, you know, that they would have listened or they would have figured it out sooner? Sure. But that is the tricky part about coaching, because what happens is a lot of times you have guys who've just never had to do that before. And, you know, it doesn't matter what it is, whatever you're trying to do, whether you're trying to quit eating, you know, fatty foods, or whether you're trying to, you know, whatever it is you're trying to do, it's just not that simple, right? A person who's trying to, you know, they're trying to stop smoking cigarettes. Like, I've had an aunt do that before, or, you know, an uncle that's stopped chewing tobacco. Like, it's not easy. You just don't go, all right, you know what, I'm coming in tomorrow, cold turkey, I'm just going to stop this. You know, it just doesn't happen. And you know, I think we just had a lot of guys before that, whether it be the last place they were at, the last coach they played for, the last program they were in, maybe these things just weren't quite as important. And, you know, playing for each other and playing hard all the time and guarding and having to play defense and, you know, all of those drastic things that were changes for them just wasn't easy. And it has been a process. There is no question about it. If you want to know how much of a process it's been, you can just look right here at me. I can tell you right now how much of a process it has been. But at the end of the day, I appreciate these guys because they've continued to listen. They've continued to try. And right now, I think they're starting to see some of this stuff, you know, come into fruition.
Jamel, obviously, you know, you guys are coming down to the wire this season. It's going to be a fight to make that conference tournament. Just what's kind of the urgency in the locker room to know it's almost do or die at this point?
The urgency is like, nah, man, we all know it's at stake. Like you said, playing with our backs against the wall, you know, we at the bottom of the barrel as low as it can get, pretty much. And I know if we win these next 5, we could be top 5, top 4 in the conference. So, you know, it's something that's doable, something we talk about, and we all know that we got to be on the same page these next 5 games.
Jamel, just looking back at the UTEP game, just what were some things that really stood out to you guys? Some things you guys, you know, again, coach has said one play, you know, could have been a difference maker, but from your perspective and what you've seen, what are some of the big things, kind of key points that stick out to you?
Things that stick out to me, I feel like we're a much better basketball team, and we've been struggling the last 2 minutes of the game, and that's where we lost that game. You know, we had a nice lead that whole game, and you know, we just gotta maintain that and handle pressure in those tough moments, execute when things are hard. But you know, we're always gonna have a lead. We just got to really figure out how to maintain it these next 5 games.
You know, obviously it was a tough loss to UTEP, like you were just talking about a little bit. How does it feel to, you know, get your bounce back really quick and have an opportunity to just get that bounce back victory?
Man, it feels good. You know, that's the beauty of basketball. Win or lose, you got another game in a couple days. So, you know, it's exciting, and you know, just got to show people who's a better team.
Just how are you guys feeling heading to Saturday, knowing, you know, how the last 4 games have played out? There's 5 games left, and you guys are still kind of battling to make sure you get into CUSA tournament.
Yeah, you know, it's a challenge, but like I said, I feel like we win these next 5, man. You know, we're top 4, top 5 in the conference, and you know, there's still a good chance that can happen. You know, we played all the rest of these teams. We know what they're going to do offensively and defensively, and we're capable of being a tougher team for 40 minutes. Now we just have to do it.
What kind of changed in these last 4 games that have really started to have you guys turn a bit of a corner and play better basketball?
A lot. We all realize, you know, it's a handful of games left, but one thing that I think that has helped us all tremendously was after the Kennesaw game, you know, we all weren't in the right headspace. You know, coach came in the locker room with some pop, and he let us know we're going to play a different style of basketball offensively. And ever since then, I feel like we've been competing at a high level in every game since then. I think it's been working for us.
Talk about the last 4 games. You scored at least 23 in 3 of those games. How much credit do you give your teammates to help you just continue to improve and get better each and every day?
Oh man, at all. You know, not everybody plays with a player that, you know, take the amount of shots that I take and can take the leadership that I give. So, you know, I always give them their props and thank them for allowing me to lead in that direction.
Obviously, you guys didn't get that win over at UTEP, but now they're going to come to your guys' home territory. Just how bad do you want this dub on Saturday?
Man, more than anything, you know, these are my favorite type of games to play in. That environment, packed house, like we played the Lobos and we went to their place. You know, it's the most exciting brand of basketball for me.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jamel.
Appreciate you.